A word on being steadfast. God provides the cure before inflicting the wound. The wound. Luke 23 talks about people beginning to say to the mountains, fall on us, and the hills cover us. For if they do these things when the wood is green, what will happen when it's dry? So this is referencing Yahushua as the green tree, a spiritual metaphor for a righteous person. The dry tree is Jerusalem and the wicked generation. And why we need to be a tree firmly planted in the root that grows by the living water, the streams of living water. I'm just going to share a word about this synagogue of Satan stuff and why all the theories about it are usually wrong, because this is a first century denotation and connotation. This happened in the times of John, which was in the times of Domitian of Rome. And what was happening then is heavy taxes. People who say they are Jews and are not is found in Revelations. Where it first started was it depicted the heavenly resurrected Yahushua denouncing the late first century synagogues of Smyrna and Philadelphia as synagogues of Satan, composed of congregations of people who claimed that they were Jews but weren't. There was Gentiles with 1 foot in one life and 1 foot in the other. Gentiles pretending to be Jews. Revelations 2:9 says, I know your tribulation and your poverty, but you are rich, and the slander of those who say that they are Jews and are not, but are a synagogue of Satan. And they will learn that I have loved you. Okay, so there's a lot more going on than what people do when they just pick apart one scripture and then misappropriate it to other things. What happened in this time period was called Fiscus Judaicus. Domitian issued legislation that made anyone who just lived like a Jew liable for heavy taxes. And then Matthew talked about brother betraying brother to death, father his child, children rising up against parents, causing them to be put to death. A man's enemies will be the members of his household. And yes, scriptures can relate to other things and have multi-layers, but this started in the first century and related specifically to the first century, first church. According to Domitian, anyone who rested on the Jewish Sabbath was liable for this Fiscus Judaicus tax. And then he would go out and he'd arrest them and seize their property. He banished them to exile, and then he put people to death because of it. So people like Tom Horn and others like that get real fanatical and go off on all these tangents and spend 99% of their time focusing on the devil and digging into the dark theories that they purport are kind of going about their salvation the wrong way, I believe. And some of it is a waste of time. Suetonius writes about the arrest and prosecution of the Gentiles who did not publicly acknowledge the Jewish faith but lived as Jews. So this is what happened in that time, and it'll happen again in the future. People that publicly denounce that they're followers of Yahushua of Nazareth. So Domitian was looking for these secret Jews, and he wanted to expose them because he was afraid of them, and they called them God-fearing Gentiles. Sometimes they were called common Gentile hands, unclean. And then later Yahushua said they're what you called common is not uncommon, and what you called unclean is now clean. He was talking about people in certain instances, not just about food laws. Because these guys, they were politically organizing against Domitian, and so he wanted to separate them. And then they were responsible for starting the fires in Rome in 66 CE, Common Era. Revelations 12:10 also talks about the accuser of the brethren and how it relates to this. So just wanted to make that note. Hebrews 10:25 says, do not neglect to meet together. So people who get on these bandwagons of hating and theories that lead them, that are based on maybe like one little truth, but the rest is like 99% lies. They just cut themselves off from any true fellowship, and they're going against the commandments then, because we're supposed to stay the salt of the covenant and not lose that, because God designed us to be intricately related to one another. We're family, whether we like it or not, whether or not we're dysfunctional, because we're not made to live the life of faith by ourselves. So Philippians 3 talks about letting go of the former things, envisioning and pressing forward to new and different things. Yahushua says, can't you see I am doing a new thing in you? Can you not perceive it? Your Torah is in my inward parts. This bread strengthens the heart of man, the bread of life. So keep that growing. If the soul is polluted, then the light of God can't dwell there, unless, of course, one repents. So we're to strive to edify others. And God will lead you to the right places and the right people. If you work and have your faith exercised, true prayer must bear the character of the one who's offering it. And just as the offered animal must go up in fire on the altar, so must the animal's soul and the nefesh of the man go up through the fire of his love towards God in order to become one with him, to have that flame kindled and continue to burn like a candle. As soon as the prayer rises through the immersion in the Holy Scriptures, the divine light comes down. Now the ancients, because they had highly developed souls and they were so holy, only had to sacrifice a little, for they gave most of their time to the Torah. We must first be cleansed through prayer. So the heart had to be right in order to do any type of sacrifice. And if it wasn't, you'd pay consequences for that, because it's the heart that the Father looks into, because he has eyes of fire, and he'll look right into your heart to purify your heart. You must also be sure to pray with deep, sincere kavanah, turned away from this world. That's the intention. Love one another with brotherly affection. Outdo one another in showing honor. Romans 12:10. Refrain from foolish controversies and strife and disputes about the law, for they're unprofitable and worthless. Titus 3. Set aside any critical spirit and commit to seeing the good. So far as it depends on you, be at peace with all men. Romans 12. So that's the end goal. Paul writes that Messiah is the end of the Torah. To look to him, keep your focus and your eyes on him.